Aloha! My name is Darren Lerner, and I am the director of the University of Hawaiʻi Sea Grant College Program, otherwise known as Hawaiʻi Sea Grant. Hawaiʻi Sea Grant supports an innovative program of research, education, and extension services directed toward the improved understanding and stewardship of coastal and marine resources of the state, region, and nation.
This is Hawaiʻi Sea Grant Podcast number 10, Metallic Fish.
Aloha, my name is Rachel, and I'm a communications specialist at Hawaiʻi Sea Grant. Welcome to our 321 podcast. This podcast features research supported by Hawaiʻi Sea Grant. Each episode highlights a new project and the people that make that project possible. I'll ask these researchers to define 3 words commonly used in their research, give them 2 minutes to explain how their research benefits communities here in Hawaii, and end by asking them to provide one thing they know about each other than their research. So, 3 words, 2 minutes, and 1 thing. It's a 321 podcast. We're learning about reef fishes in this podcast, specifically how pollution may affect reef fishes here in Hawaii. Here to share their research are Megan Donahue and her graduate fellow Eileen Nalley. Let's start by introducing yourselves.
Hi, my name is Megan Donahue, and I'm a researcher at the Hawaii Institute of Marine Biology.
Hi, I'm Eileen Nalley, and I'm a graduate fellow in the UH Marine Biology graduate program.
First off, can you briefly tell me what your project is about?
Yeah, so our primary interest is in determining whether or not we see land-based pollutants, and so far specifically metals, in the tissues of commonly eaten reef fishes in Hawaii. We're also hoping to understand how the metals move from land into the fishes that we eat.
So 3 phrases you use a lot in your research are land-based pollution, metal accumulation, and reef fishes. Can you explain what these phrases mean?
Yeah, so land-based pollutants are simply substances that are generated on land by human activities like urban development, agriculture, or transportation that then make their way onto the nearshore marine environment, which in this case includes coral reefs.
And what about metal accumulation?
Metal accumulation is how metals can get into the tissue of fishes as they feed on the reefs. So herbivorous fishes may feed on algae and also sediment on the reefs and actually accumulate those metals directly into their tissues. And then there's a second process of bioaccumulation that can occur up the food chain. So if predatory fishes eat herbivorous fishes that already have some metals in their tissues, they accumulate those higher up in the food chain. And you've heard of this before when you've been concerned about mercury contamination in tuna or in other predatory fishes in the ocean.
And so in this work, we're looking at a suite of different metals that might be indicative of different types of land use. For example, arsenic can be a result of historic agriculture. Other types of metals like lead and cadmium may be representative of cars on the road or industrial land use. And other things like copper maybe come from paint used on boats. And so the types of metals that you end up seeing can also give you an idea of their origin.
And reef fishes. You've talked about the reef. What about the fishes?
So we're interested in looking at fish mostly because that's the main thing that is eaten off of a reef. And our particular interest really started with fish that eat a lot of sediment because this is an obvious source of pollution moving into the food chain. But we're also looking at fish that eat other types of things, like, for example, predatory fish that eat other fish. They might be accumulating metals in a different way, as Megan just talked about.
And some of this particular species we're looking at are manini and kole. And what other ones, Eileen?
We're also looking at kala, some kaku, barracuda. Yeah, we've tried to get representatives of several different types of feeding, and the particular targets have been fish that people commonly consume here.
Well, tell me in 2 minutes or less how your research benefits the communities here in Hawaii.
So this work is really important for a number of reasons. First off, in Hawaii, people eat a ton of fish, and it's important for cultural reasons through sharing and ensuring that everyone is taken care of in a community, but it's also a really important component of healthy diet. So we're really trying to focus on a multitude of different locations that cover both places with historic contamination and also places where maybe we wouldn't expect to see any kind of pollution in the fish. And the goal is really to get a better idea of different locations and different species that are maybe of concern to people who are fishing, so that if we do find concerning levels of any of these pollutants, we can work with managers and recommend action be taken if necessary.
Well, that's a wrap. But before we go, we want to ask you, what is one thing, Megan, that you know about Eileen other than her research?
Well, Eileen is from New Orleans, and she is a beer brewer.
A beer brewer?
Yes, I am. I started brewing beer as a way to use the leftover bottles that I had while living in New Orleans at a time in which we still didn't have recycling following Hurricane Katrina.
Oh, good excuse.
Yeah. And what can I say? I've done it ever since.
Wonderful. And Eileen, what's one thing you know about Megan other than her research?
Well, in the same vein, Megan is an expert in pickling. And I've recently learned from her that you can pickle an eggplant.
Well, we are going to have a pickling party in the lab at the end of summer, so I'm looking forward to figuring out what kind of end of summer bounty we can pickle and jar for our not very cold winters. I don't know.
Well, stay tuned for our next podcast, and mahalo for listening. Aloha.
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 This Hawaii Sea Grant 321 podcast featured 3 songs: Happiness by bensound.com, Ukulele by bensound.com, and Cute by bensound.com. Find them on iTunes and bensound.com.